Hello, you lovely humans. How are you doing? Rada here from LCVE Education and Little Crafters Boxes, and I am live again tonight for day 3 of our Navigating Alternative Education Challenge. Say hello if you are joining me. Pop replay in the comments if you are watching on replay, and I shall come and interact with you later on. So, hoping that the tech is working. It has been working for the later part of this week, so I'm hoping that we're all good to go on that. It looks like you can see the board a little bit better today than yesterday as well, which is great. So today is all about educational trauma and school-based trauma, okay? So I imagine that this will apply to quite a lot of the people in our community, and it may apply to some people that are new as well that we've not met yet. So you're very welcome just to lurk in the background. You're very welcome to interact as well if you'd like to. And if you'd like to come and join us over on the LCV Education Facebook group following this live to interact with us in a more sort of private space, that's absolutely fine as well. That would be lovely. Hello, Zoe. Nice to see you. So, school-based distress or educational trauma. We're going to talk a little bit about what this is. You might find that your child might have gone through this and you might not even realize. You as well, okay? When your child is going through a thing, obviously you are there to support your child, but it does affect you as well. So we're going to look a little bit at you parents and things that you guys can do just to sort of support yourselves or be supported in that situation as well. So let's have a look. So how might educational trauma happen? How is that? Can you see that, or is it just a big blur? It looks a bit blurry on my screen, but it's okay. I know it in my head, and I'll read bits to you as well where it's important, okay? So first of all, I'd like to say that educational trauma can happen when a child has repeated experiences of something happening to them. It might be a feeling unsafe thing. It might be a shaming thing, and it's not necessarily always intentional. Okay, sometimes it's unintended. For example, if they're not good at maths and they have to do maths every single day in school, and every single day they feel like they're just not good at maths, that might feel quite traumatic for them. Okay, it might make them feel worse every time, and that can then lead to other things, can't it? Because it will be the thing they avoid. They might then start not going to those lessons or playing up in those lessons, and then you start getting the behavioural issues, and that gets escalated, and before you know it, you've decided to home educate because they can't cope in school, and they might have started from that one thing. Okay. But it doesn't just have to be not being good at maths. It can be lots of things, okay? Now, this is not a finite list, but the sorts of things that we see commonly in our community and the children I've worked with in my sort of previous life before this is things like negative interactions, sometimes with peers, sometimes with actual other staff within the school. It happens, bullying can happen. And it can be, it doesn't just have to be sort of traditional bullying that we remember from, back in the 80s and the 90s when we were all in the school playground. Bullying has changed so much over the years. There's social media now, even on the phone. They do a lot of. I used to see it all the time. You become normalized to it when you're an educator, but it's not nice at all for them. It can be quite traumatic for them. It's the word to describe it, really. And it can be, a process to get over it. It's not just an interaction that happens once in the playground, especially if it's something that's been recorded and put online, for example. It can last for a time. Their needs not being met and understood is a common one. Feeling unsafe for whatever reason. We've talked a lot about that, haven't we? Hello, Mary. Lovely to see you. Exclusion, discrimination, feeling like they're being told off repeatedly, whilst it's a small telling off, if it's happening every day, imagine if they're a secondary school child and you kind of, let's say it's an unmet need, right? They've got ADHD and they can't sit still and they're getting told off in a lesson for not being able to sit still. But then every 45 minutes, they change and go to another lesson. So every 45 minutes, if a new member of staff is then having a go at them because of behaviorism, it's observation only. They don't look under the surface all the time. That same telling off, you've had that 6 or 7 times by the time you get to the end of the day, and that can feel quite hard actually for a child. So from their point of view, that can feel quite traumatic. And then things like standardized testing and compliance, especially with PDA families, children, that doesn't always work. Okay, so Yeah, if anything, it'll do the opposite thing. Observable behaviors, you're giving a child an instruction as a teacher. The child is then not doing it because it's an instruction, and their immune system went into overdrive because of PDA, and then they had a meltdown or destroyed the entire lesson. Teacher is now dealing with that bad behavior, and that was PDA. So again, that is, the need for compliance in a behaviorism model will not work with a PDA. It's the wrong model for that child. And then you've got things like chronic stress, pressure, overwhelm, constant comparison. I used to see that a lot, especially as they used to get older, when they used to get closer to GCSE age. That pressure of needing, there's a lot, when you're young, you're 14 years old, 15 years old, all of a sudden the whole world is telling you that you need to get all these GCSEs and your whole life depends on it. And, you might not be good at exams. You might be better at sort of showing your knowledge in a different way rather than in a sort of exam scenario. And now your entire life is dependent on these 10 exams that you're going to sit and then be compared with the other 200 kids in your school that are sitting them. That's a lot, for someone that's not had any pressure like that throughout most of their life, then to have all of that. So I remember seeing it a lot at that sort of age, although it does come in at other times too for different reasons. So these are the sorts of things that can sometimes cause educational trauma, okay? So when they are going through a trauma phase, let me just turn this notification off because I can't see comments. Let me know if any of this sounds familiar to you, by the way. Just a yes or no. I don't need any details in this. This is a public space, so I'm not going to ask anything too detailed. When they go through trauma, when any of us go through trauma, right, the part of our brain, I can't remember what the name is of that part of the brain. There is a part of our brain that basically does reasoning. It's our ability to articulate ourselves, to say how we feel, and then to help sort of, have a conversation to find a way around the problem that we're having. But if we are feeling threatened and if we are feeling unsafe, that part of our brain actually stops functioning, completely goes into offline mode, okay? And then we show something called protective behaviors, okay? And those protective behaviors are what you then see, okay? So this is the behaviorism model, only sees that bit, okay? Anxiety, avoidance, anger. Let me know if this sounds familiar, if you've recognized it ever in your past. Depression, low self-esteem, decreased motivation, frustration, withdrawal, mental health issues, or any of the above are how this manifests itself initially, because that child is not in a place right now where they can say, oh, by the way, mother, I'm having this slight little problem that you might be able to help me with, blah, 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 blah. They're not there. That ship is sailed for now. For now, they are in one of these protective phases, and we need to help them come back into a safe space before they can start to open that sort of locked space that in their brain that's now been shut off for a little while, okay, before they can move forward with any education. Forcing and we're going to talk a little bit about this, about what resilience actually means, because one of the things I see, unfortunately, in education as well, is people say, oh, you've got to build your resilience, you've got to build resilience. Resilience doesn't mean what a lot of people think it means. So we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. But let's talk a little bit. I spoke, I think it was on day one, about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I won't go into all the details. You can find it on the internet. It's in my book if you've got a copy of my book. Okay, but it looks a little bit like this. Okay, it's a pyramid, and the basic needs are down here at the bottom. And as you meet the basic needs, you can move up the pyramid, okay, and you can do more and more stuff. And the idea is that to get self-actualization, so your best self, where you feel accomplished, you are out there living your life in the world with, full of confidence and all that stuff, you have to go up one by one. You can't go to step 3 if you haven't got all the things you need in steps 1 and 2, okay? Step 1 down here is things like food, shelter, love, safety, okay? And so those basic needs have to be met before you move up to the next stage, learning, earning money, and all that jazz, okay? Accessing school, let's say, in child speak. So if they are down here, they will stay on, their brain will stay on a repeat loop cycle. I'm a computer programmer, so I think in programming terms. They will stay on a repeat loop, okay, until all of those things are met, okay? And if that takes forever, you can't measure that progress, okay? It will just come when it comes. Their brain will naturally not go to that next step until the other bits are met. In the short term, it's important that we address the fact that, we need to meet them where they are at. Don't try and get them to go back into school. You know how they say, you've got to make them come in, we'll support them, blah, blah, blah. But that's not necessarily going to support the issue if it's not actually addressing the sort of. In the short term, a child will not engage with learning until they feel safe enough to try, okay? And in the long term, if we don't address it, the fear or the shame can stick. It stays with them. We've all got insecurities from, things that happened to us when we were young. I know I have. I'm quite open in talking about some of, my life experiences. Throughout school, I wasn't a very popular child. I used to, be quite a quiet one. I used to live in a lot of fear, I suppose. I never felt like I was good enough, all those sorts of things. No one ever sort of helped me to deal with those things when I was young. So I suppose it stuck with me for a really, really long time, probably a little bit even now into my adulthood. I feel like I have to try twice as hard sometimes to be half as good as the person next to me. And I know that's a complex in my head, but it stays with you from when you're young. If no one supports you to process that and understand that, those insecurities and where they come from. But anyway, I digress. Long term, it can stick for a lifetime. Okay, so it is important that we do help our kids to understand what it is that, and then find ways to kind of help them overcome whatever it is that's got them to that space. Okay, so confidence is the key here. We need to help them to build sort of self-belief again, confidence within themselves. Which is what, if you're in the Little Crafters Boxes or LCB education community, it's 90% of what we do. The learning materials are awesome, but it starts with the confidence. It's little wins, and it's making them feel like they're part of something and they can succeed where they might not have done before. So when the nervous system is in threat mode, I just said this, the thinking brain goes offline. Okay, they're not there to learn. So forcing the issue is not going to make them learn. You can make them sit in the chair, but you're not going to force that part of their brain to engage if they're not ready for it yet. Okay, with trauma, good news, okay, because there's always a silver lining. Your child is not lazy, okay? They are not being difficult. It's almost a little bit similar to reluctance that we talked about yesterday, okay? It's often protection rather than defiance. So if they're displaying those behaviors because of the trauma thing, they're just protecting themselves. They're just waiting for someone to kind of identify and see it and then sort of help them to just overcome where they are and make them feel safe again. That's the biggest thing, okay? So these are some of the things that can help with trauma. Okay, first of all, I would say if they're in a situation, Zoe's saying, it's funny, I always used to think I enjoyed school, but I was completely anxious and it drove perfectionist behaviors that I had to undo as an adult. With my son, I didn't want to do that. Do you know, I feel very, very similar to that, not with anxiety, but with the thing I spoke about. So important to me that they feel confident and that they talk as well about emotional stuff. One of the things I make a habit of doing, mine do go to school. When they come home every day, I make a point of sitting down and just asking them about their day. And if there were any incidents, and if there's anything that upset them that day that they want to talk about, because I don't just want them to go there and learn. I don't care for academic learning. I think that comes naturally. You all know that I believe in intrinsic motivation and in curiosity. And my kids are very curious. They're doing LCB education curriculum for fun this week, but it's not about the academics. If they're going to school, I want them to feel like there's no teacher that they can't speak to about how they feel, as long as they say it nicely. I don't want them to feel like they're ever going to get spoken down to. If there's ever issues in school, I think those incidents that feel really uncomfortable, between children, a lot of adults don't deal with them properly because they never got taught how to deal with things like confrontation or things like conflict. Conflict resolution is really hard, actually, especially when it makes you feel uncomfortable as well. So we try and teach that emotional intelligence, even more so in our home rather than the other stuff, because I don't want them growing up, having these insecurities, I suppose, that I've got. We all want better for our kids, don't we? Hello, Saida, lovely to see you. Okay, so these are trauma-informed things that can help your child. If they are in a situation, before I get into this, where they feel where it's not working, right? They are going on. I don't think any of you guys are, but if they go to school and they are feeling like they are getting, that is not a good place, that is not a safe place for them, I would say they need to be removed from a situation straight away where they are feeling like they are not safe. Okay, that doesn't mean you have to like run there and pull them out of school. It means that if the school needs to ideally put some intervention in where they put them somewhere else, or they take away the thing that's making them feel unsafe. They have to do something straight away. Don't leave that. That's really important. Okay, there is no amount of education they will miss that will be more harming to them than being left in a situation where they feel like they are not safe. Okay. But yeah, beyond that, let's go into like helping them with trauma. Let's say we've uncovered the trauma, we know it's there, we're now supporting them. Things like safe spaces. Safe spaces might be a room. You might have a room in your house. Let me know where your child likes to go to learn or chill out or do whatever it is they do. My eldest, since he was a baby, he's done this. He's got this thing where he just likes to put the blanket over his head and he like sits with his book or his iPad or whatever it is, with a blanket over his head, because being that in that kind of space, in that little bubble, makes him feel really safe. He's 11 now and he still does it. So it's obviously a thing that makes him feel safe, but he likes dens, he likes small spaces. My little one likes things that are cozy, so very blanket, all the warm things and all like 100 cuddly toys on his bed every night. I don't know how he sleeps, but he does all of that because it makes him feel safe. I feel like learning to regulate our nervous systems is one of the best skills we could ever have. Totally agree. Ever learn? Yeah, I totally agree with that, Zoe. 100%. Emotional regulation. I just talked about that. What I do with my own children. It's a really hard one. That people talk about it all the time, but actually, if no one ever taught you how to regulate emotionally, then how on earth are you equipped to then teach that skill to your children? They're not old enough to learn adult skills yet about, waiting before you speak, before the other one finishes, and not shouting at each other and not punching each other in the face if they've just done something to upset you. They've not got those adult tools yet, but just emotionally regulating themselves and not overreacting in a situation or knowing what an appropriate reaction might look like. It's tougher than that one looks. So that is definitely one to kind of take a step and think about the things that your children do that might need a little bit of support with the emotional regulation, and then think about how you can actually do that. It's harder than you think. Let's see what you guys. My son loves snuggly things too. Yeah, my little one, all the teddies right on his bed every night, or they have to be like in a little dollhouse next to him. And he doesn't feel, otherwise he feels like he's alone in the room, and he can't be alone in the room because he doesn't like that. So the teddies are okay there, and he's 9 now, and he's always done it as well since he was very little. Consistency is an important one. So if you're home educating, you don't have to have loads of structure to have consistency. Consistency just means they're going to get the same thing every time. So my kids know if I ask them how their day's been at school, I'm not looking for a one-word answer or they understand by now that that is a conversation, and they would just tell me everything about their day. I don't have to sort of probe too hard because that's become a normal way of, I suppose, living in our homes. So all the emotions come out as soon as they come home. They get it all out there. We have a conversation about it, and then they start their evening happy again because we've dealt with anything that was sort of underlying there before, it manifests too deeply. So that kind of consistency, not necessarily the same every day, but just having that same solid reaction, the same solid support every time. They know where to go to get all the things that they need, even if that's a snack, or whatever it is, their snuggly thing, Zoe. Involvement in decision making is a good one. So all of you, if you're in our community now, you're at that kind of cusp of, we're about to end an educational academic year with LCB. We're about to start a new one. I imagine you've all had those conversations with your kids by now. Are we doing another year? What do you want? Do you want a box? Do you want the workbooks? Do you want to do lessons with RADA? What is it that you want? And that, I can say that already because I know this community really, really well. And you guys are really good at involving your children in those decisions. If they feel empowered to make those decisions, or at least have a say in those decisions, and they're way more likely to engage down the line as well. Choice of participation, we talked about choices yesterday, and then predictable routines. So then the predictable routines and visual schedules I say that on with caution. That doesn't work for every child. Some kids love it. ASD, autistic children would absolutely love that. They like predictability. They like to know what's coming, even if it's only loose. And that visual timetable thing works really, really well with ASD. But then there's other types of like PDA, it probably wouldn't work so well with. They might not want that predictability because it might feel like a demand. So you have to gauge it by your child. Okay, so choices. Well, we're not going to dwell on this too much today. It's not that dissimilar. So trauma is not that dissimilar to reluctance in that sense. So, if the example that comes to mind is, when they get told they have to go to school every single day, even when it's not working. And I've seen this on both sides, as a parent and as a teacher, and now as well as an alternative education provider. Okay, and with all the different hats on, my conclusion is always the same. Why? You wouldn't do that to an adult. If an adult absolutely hated their job and they felt unsafe going there, they would be free to just leave. Why does a child have to? A child who's got less emotional regulatory tools and less mechanisms and support stuff inside themselves, why would you send them into a place where they don't feel safe and not give them a choice? I do not understand the logic of that, but hey ho, that's a conversation for another day. Anyway, you at home can offer choices in things like, do you want to do this topic or that topic? You guys are everyone that's here tonight is in the LCB education community. You all know how this goes. We offer you choices so that you can offer your children choices, and we plan it all for you. So, for example, we offer boxes, workbooks, the online learning portal, another way that of their own choosing, just to do the learning. And then we give them 15 units per month to choose from. So there's millions of choices, and we don't even say they have to do this many units. Do it if you do want to do it. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. 9 out of 10, in fact, more than 9 out of 10 times, right? Every single child will choose to do something because you told them they didn't have to. The minute you tell them, you've got to do this, you're guaranteed going to get that knockback and you'll start going the other way. But the choices thing is magic when it comes to trauma or reluctance, okay? Tools, how to do it, okay? Do you want to write? Do you want to make something? Are we typing? Are we speech to texting? All of that stuff. When they're doing work, just having those choices as opposed to being told they have to do it this way, especially if there is a reason that they don't want to do it in a specific way, that is the difference between trauma and no trauma and enjoyment of learning. Okay, and I'm obviously talking about all of this in the context of learning, okay? Obviously, you can relate this stuff to other types of trauma too, but education is why we're all here. So let's, and the whole child, okay? So let's stick to that for tonight. Participation, we talked about this yesterday. They can do 5 minutes, they can do an hour, whatever they can cope with. Don't force that. Let them sort of decide that. And then response formats: say it, show it, build it, photograph it. Okay, so they can, how they kind of feedback that they've done that learning. How are they going to show you? I've given my kids, again, my kids are doing LCB education curriculum this week. I gave them a set of workbooks for Da Vinci Month. I've given them access to the online portal, and I said, off you go and do whatever you want if you fancy doing it. And they've been picking it up, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down, and they're using the different strategies. And it's so wonderful to see how the LCB children must be engaging with the curriculum as well, because they are absolutely loving it. I don't want them to love it too much because, they're not going to want to go back to school, but we'll see how that goes later. Anyway, let's move along. Building resilience. Okay, this is the one I want to talk about, the trauma-informed way. Okay, what resilience is not is pushing through, okay? Building resilience by going to a place or doing a thing that makes you feel stressed and adds to your trauma is not building any resilience. That is making the trauma worse, okay? It's very, very important. Safe experiences of trying the thing, and then maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. It's okay. Being supported and then recovering and then trying again. Resilience, okay? Not going and doing the thing that makes you feel like you're going to die every day. You are building nothing but trauma from that, okay? That's very important. And lots of people they say all the time, they're resilience building, blah, blah, blah. But 9 out of 10 times, what people mean when they say that is they are doing the thing that makes them feel unsafe. They are facing their fear, I suppose. facing your fear is a good thing if you're doing it in a safe way, okay? Not if you're being made to do it in a way that doesn't make. Again, being a little bit vulnerable here. There's a time when I was young. I remember we went to the theme park with my family, and my dad really liked going on the roller coasters, the big upside down ones, and I was like 8 or 9, and like they were like, you've got to go on the roller coaster. And they made us go. My parents made us, me and my sister, they made us go on the roller coaster, not just once, but like again and again and again, to build our resilience. And that was like the worst thing. I cannot stand roller coasters. To save my life now, I will never go on one, because all I learned to do was cope while I was on it and not feel like I was dying and scream the whole time I was on it. I never enjoyed the experience, and I never built any resilience to it either. That is trauma. Do not do that. I know you guys wouldn't do that, by the way. It's just that, when you go to the theme park as a 90s parent and you paid for the whole day trip, I suppose my parents felt like they were getting their money's worth. So, they weren't trying to be a bad parent in that situation. They were just trying to make us have all the experiences for maximum enjoyment. But that's not how that translated. So, there we go. That's another little nugget out of my very traumatic childhood from the sounds of this life. It wasn't that bad, I promise. Right, so good places to begin. Interest-led learning and project-based learning, okay, whether that's with us or however you do that in your house. Building a sense of mastery, so we talked about yesterday, breaking it right down until you feel like you've actually achieved something and done something good. Developing self-regulation skills, calming tools that work for your child. We talked about how that's different for every child. And then promoting problem solving. So this is a thing I do with my kids all the time, because they come to me constantly, mummy, this is wrong. I need a snack. Or so-and-so did this to me, talking about each other constantly. So, I used to deal with this in the moment, and then quickly deal with the problem, and then, move on to the rest of my day. But I'm getting better and better now at getting my children to kind of reflect and go, okay, so how can you deal with this? What can we do? This is the problem. What might the solution be? They don't always come up with the answer straight away. But the point is, they're at least thinking about what a potential solution might be, rather than just going, mummy, which helps a little bit in my day too. Zoe's saying, oh no, I thought being resilient was being able to manage challenges in a supportive way, and when they're ready to, not flooding them exactly, so they could avoid it forever. Exactly that, Zoe. Okay, so good news. As you will be able to see from my experiences that I've shared with you this evening, the trauma will eventually be the reason for their success if they learn to get up and carry on. The most successful people have had the most adversity, and build that true resilience with your kids. You guys are already awesome at that. So first of all, give yourselves a pat on the back for the fact that you're here learning about it because you actually care that much, and the fact that you're trying. It's more than what I had in my life, and I've had to build a lot of my own resilience throughout my life. But look, I don't know if you can count me as a successful person. I like to think I try my best, but for me, success is helping more people and reforming something I care deeply about, which is education and alternative education. Has my life been perfect up to this stage? No. Did anyone give me a helping hand to get to this stage? No. If anything, most of my life, people have told me I'm not good enough. I will fail. Get a job. Stop trying to do your own thing. Conform. And I haven't. I've fought against all of that. Built my own resilience over the years. Slowly held my own hand, and here we are. LCB is a huge success story of that. We started from zero. And those of you that have been in our community for a while will see, we literally bought a place in the pandemic. It was a horrible, derelict old building that had been disused for over 7 years before we'd been here. Zombified spiders on the ceilings, no windows, damp everywhere. We were working off the floor, because we had no money to do the place up or anything. And we literally just had this little subscription box business that's grown and grown, 10 staff in now, and actually reforming education across the entire country. I'm visiting a very, very, very prestigious catalogue company tomorrow that supplies to schools, because now schools want a little bit of what you lot are getting. So that's where we are up to in that journey now. And that's, adversity, yes, plenty of it. It's not the fact that it's happened to them. So if you are worried that, oh my goodness, this awful thing has happened to my child, are they ever going to get over it? Of course, we are resilient as human beings. You can support them to get over it, okay? And when they get over it, not only are they going to have overcome that trauma, but you will have helped them to become a stronger version of themselves, a much stronger version that they would have never even been pre-trauma. So, you're doing an amazing thing for your children. Let's see what you guys are saying. I feel the same, says Zoe. You are definitely successful and very much good at it. Thank you, Zoe. That's really nice of you. And then Saida, you've done so well. I'm so proud of you. Oh, don't, because I'll start crying. I'm not that resilient, guys. Okay, don't say nice things to me. I still don't take praise very well because I've never had it. Okay, let's go on to the day 3 challenge. Right, so day 3 challenge. It's a nice simple one today, okay? You don't have to do this here. You can go and do this in the Facebook group. The Facebook is a private group, okay? It's a very safe place. The people in it are lovely. LCB Education. There is a thread that has just magically popped up while you've been live here with me. Okay, I want you to think about a typical day of learning with your child. What does that look like for them? And or any sort of past traumas that they've been through that you might now that you've got all these trauma-informed strategies behind you that you can help them with, think about one strategy that you might be able to do for them, whether that's a choice or a safe space or emotional regulation, consistency, visual timetables. Think about one thing that you can do just to support them with whatever trauma they might have gone through in the past, okay? And then share that strategy with me that you think might work for your child. I would love to hear, and I will keep an eye on that thread as well. I will give you personal feedback if you're engaging with me. And of course, you have the opportunity, if you do engage, to win a signed copy of my book, a #1 bestseller called There Is Another Way. And I will be announcing the winners for that tomorrow at 6 p.m. Live again, okay? If you're on the email list, I will send you an email tonight to send you a link for that. So the children and the adults are all live at 6, a different time tomorrow. So remember that, okay? It's a bit earlier because the kids go to bed and they get a bit grumpy, don't they, at night? 6 p.m. so that we'll announce all the prizes and I will talk to you about how you can potentially go forward now that you know all this stuff. And your children have had the experience hopefully this week as well. So have a wonderful evening. I'll see you over on Facebook if you are engaging with the thread, and I'll see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Bye.